In the weight loss industry, 92% of diets fail. We are literally relying on an industry that expects us to fail 92% of the time, and we keep going back for more.
Has your life, your dreams been interrupted? Good news. It is possible to reinvent our lives. People are doing it every day, and some are brave enough to share the struggles, disappointments, and challenges. If you are looking for a new beginning, a do-over, or to rediscover your passion, maybe even find a new one, then grab a cup of coffee and let's talk. Interrupted, Act 2, Reinventing Your Legacy, with your host, Coach Lori.
Holly Bertone is a weight loss coach. I wish you could see her. She has beautiful red hair. Holly, welcome.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
We always start with what your life is like now, what you're doing, and what you love about it.
In simplistic terms, I'm a weight loss coach. The longer answer to that is I'm a former FBI Chief of Staff for Counterintelligence turned certified holistic health coach. And I use everything that I learned as the Chief of Staff for Counterintelligence to help women not just lose weight, because we think weight loss, we think diet culture, we think the quick fix and all of that, but to look at it from a holistic approach, meaning we address the emotional eating triggers that got us here in the first place, looking at it from a place of holistic health, metabolic health, especially in midlife. Each year that we get older, the diseases just start coming. So how can we make this next chapter of our lives the healthiest, the best? Like, we're going to travel and be with our kids and our grandkids and do all the fun things and be healthy doing it, and not just keep getting saddled with all of these diseases, and then figure out a way to make it stick, to make it a part of our lifestyle so that we're not going back to those old habits and restarting that diet every 6 months.
And what do you love about what you're doing now?
Oh my goodness, everything. Number one, it took me quite a while to get to this place and figure everything out. But and I've heard so many people talk about that journey and all the twists and turns, and those twists and turns are necessary. They're necessary to learn all the lessons. They're necessary to get to where you want to be. Had you asked me 5 years ago that I would be doing this full time, that I'd be divorced, that I would be living in Pennsylvania and have a dog, I would have been like, no, that's not my life.
Oh my God.
But here we are.
So far, I've had two jaw-dropping moments. You were working for the FBI and then you had something happen and you left and now you're doing this. Can you kind of set the stage for that?
Yeah, kind of crazy. My life was turned upside down. On my 39th birthday, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I went through the traditional surgery, chemo, radiation. Let me back up for a second. In my 20s, I was 40 pounds overweight. In my 30s, I became a competitive athlete. I lost all the weight. I was 110 pounds, soaking wet, just this tiny little thing of 5 foot nothing, right? I was a competitive mountain bike racer. I'd stand on a podium and get a medal around my neck, or sometimes they give out pint glasses, which, was kind of cool. I thought that I was the epitome of health. So this breast cancer thing just kind of, what I thought at the time came out of the blue. Now I know, oh, gee, Holly, having a diet that's 95% processed foods, this go lifestyle, completely adrenaline junkie, stressed out, all of the toxins, all of the factors, it all adds up. These diseases that we seem to keep collecting, 95% of it can be minimized, even eliminated with lifestyle factors. I didn't know that then, but I know that now. But what happened was I never got better after breast cancer, and I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. So it was like a 1-2 punch. At some point, my health just kept deteriorating, that I needed to resign. So I did. In 2017, I left my dream job.
So were you just heartbroken?
Oh God. Yeah. That was the rock bottom of rock bottoms.
From there, you left, but you didn't leave because you had something else on the docket. So how did this all transpire?
Kind of fast forward, after several months of just marinating in my misery, I became a certified natural health coach, a certified holistic health coach. Kind of went down that path. I learned about root cause healing. I actually healed myself. And I feel like I'm glossing over this. There's like so much to this. Like, oh, I just healed myself. Oh, I just have breast cancer. Like, there's so much to the story to unpack. But I really want to make sure we get into the meaty stuff. And along that way, the big moment, my interrupted moment, as you said, was on my 49th birthday, because I was a health coach starting to work with clients. And I looked in the mirror that day and I just remember feeling, after everything that I had been through, after rock bottom, after rock bottom, after rock bottom. And literally I was on that trajectory of healing. And I remember looking at myself. I was probably 10 to 15 pounds overweight, like not significantly overweight, but enough that on my 5'0" frame, my face was totally blown up. My body was I just felt frumpy and flabby and I didn't have any energy. I was just absolutely fried and I just felt gross. And it was more than that. It was that level of embarrassment, because I'm a health coach. Like I thought that I was doing all the right things as a health coach based on what I was taught in school, but it wasn't working. Like it healed me, but I still felt I felt like an 80-year-old woman trapped in a 49-year-old body. And I felt like I was a horrible representation to my clients. You know, they kind of say, if you want what they have, do what they do. And I'm looking in the mirror saying, no one's going to want what I have.
What flipped? What happened?
Yeah, that was when I really decided to just start flipping everything upside down. I dusted off my FBI hat and put it back on. And I'm like, okay, let me go grab all the skills that I learned my career and figure this out. Like, let's go find the clues. That's when really I realized, like, this methodology that I use for weight loss, I've been using it almost my entire life. It's just kind of morphed over the years. I even used it when I was going through a divorce. So it's that universal. But really what I realized is that when we hit midlife, things are different. They're just different. Our bodies have changed. You know, we blame our hormones, but even one of my best friends just wrote a best-selling book on menopause and hormones. And even, you know, she said very specifically, hormone therapy is great, but you've got to address those lifestyle factors first. That's where I come in. It's like, okay, let's go back to the basics. Everyone poo-poos the basics, but the basics are where it's at. You look at any professional athlete, what are they doing every single day to get better? They're doing the basics. I think we just, as a society, we live in this microwave quick fix society that we think that we can just do whatever we want to do and have this everything in moderation kind of mentality. The next thing you know, there's 20, 30, 40, 50, 70 pounds. We're facing things like autoimmune disease and diabetes or prediabetes or cancer and all these diseases. I'm like, there is a better way. And again, I'm not saying cure at all. What I am saying is there is a better way. And going back to the basics with these lifestyle factors is a component. It's not the only component, but it's a component. And the other piece of that I think is so often in this kind of health, wellness, even diet industry, everyone just is very laser focused on one thing. Not a lot of people look at the body holistically. That's what I really like to do, is look at us like this big puzzle that we're just trying to put back together. I was talking to a friend. We were talking about how you untangle the yarn to kind of get to the conclusion. I said, sometimes you got to untangle the yarn. Sometimes you just got to collect the string and start knitting things together. That's really where we're at in midlife, because this is a time when a lot of things have come completely unraveled. Divorce, empty nest, aging parents, parents that are passing away, friends that are passing away, this weird age where your best friend can either have kids who are in elementary school or grandkids who are in elementary school. It's just like this weird time. Or instead of everything unraveling, can also be a time where we say, you know what? I've spent the last 15, 20 years focusing on everyone else and everything else and building my career and my family. It's time to focus on me. That chance to put yourself first, put your health first. Everyone likes to start with weight. I look at everything from a holistic perspective, but everyone's like, weight's always the first thing that everyone's screaming about. And that place and that time to just focus on, okay, let's start picking up pieces of string and let's start figuring out what we're going to knit for this next part of our lives.
It seems like there is such a theme through all of my interviews, whatever the specific thing that the person is talking about, it goes back to self-care. And when we look at people kind of in the midlife and beyond, we had a theme growing up of being seen and not heard. So it seems to go back to that. One of the ladies I interviewed, she has this amazing career, a magazine. She's a photographer. She went to a doctor to get help for weight loss. She just needed to lose weight. And the doctor sent her to a counselor and said, you have trauma. And once you deal with your trauma, you're probably going to lose weight. And I thought, how insightful of that doctor, because they could have just given her some pills, some shots. I mean, that seems to be the instant fix. And it sounds like when we first started talking that you address that emotional part.
And a couple of things that you mentioned that I really want to touch on. So the first one is self-care and the second one's the trauma. So I want to just touch on self-care just for a second. Self-care is kind of a slippery slope. Because when people think self-care, they think, oh, I'm going to go take a bubble bath, or, oh, I'm going to go get a massage or go get my nails done. That's important. That is important to have that quiet time for ourselves, to pamper ourselves, to treat ourselves, to do something special for ourselves. I'm not saying it's not important, but there's bigger issues. You get out of that 60-minute massage, you're like, oh, I feel like Jell-O. You get in the car, that key goes into the ignition. I guess you push the button. That's how old I am. You push the button. All of the weight of the world just comes right back onto your shoulders. That to-do list starts going through your mind. All of that stress that you had going into that 60-minute massage is right back. It's a slippery slope to self-care is important, but I think it's important to understand that those root causes really need to be addressed. And when you're talking about trauma.
And if you could relate to turning the key, we're talking to you.
Yeah, exactly. And especially with trauma too, everyone likes to point the finger at childhood trauma. And again, not saying like, childhood trauma is legitimate, 100% legitimate. And there's more people than not that have those invisible scars from childhood trauma, even coming from the best of parents in the best of situations. But there's also a lifetime of accumulation of events that feed on top of each other. It's going back, it's getting to that root cause, and it's looking at our kind of trauma from a holistic perspective and not just a singular event. And really to kind of give that comparison from the weight loss perspective, when you think about lottery winners. Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple of statistics here. Number one is that in the weight loss industry, 92% of diets fail. We are literally relying on an industry that expects us to fail 92% of the time, and we keep going back for more. If you compare this to lottery winners, now 70%, they have a little better average, but 70% of lottery winners go back to either not having money or even being bankrupt within several years. And it's actually, there's a phenomenon, and it's called the lottery curse. And if you think about it from that perspective, they never addressed what got them. So they have all the money. They have all the money in the world. Like they don't have another care under the sun, but they didn't address what got them there in the first place. They weren't good stewards of their money, and they didn't change their habits. That's really how we need to look at this weight loss journey, just like that.
That is so good, because as a coach, one of the things that every New Year's I do some sort of recording about resolutions, because resolutions don't work. I'm sure there's a statistic, because we say, oh, I'm going to change my life. But the truth is, it's those tiny habits that begin to make the big difference. And the people that I've interviewed that have found cures for health and weight loss, it's always addressing the whole person, reducing it to the ridiculous, and looking at the basics. The basics are underestimated, because like water, breathing, all these techniques that are so important, we just take for granted.
You know, and sugar is one of those things, another slippery slope, because some people, first of all, it's very addicting. Some people can have a bite of a cookie and put it down. Most people can't. When you can actually look at yourself in the mirror and realize that, like, okay, do I eat half a cookie? Can I actually eat half a cookie? Or is it the sleep? Like I was that person, ice cream was my arch nemesis. And I would drive home. So from Quantico to Falls Church, where I was living at the time, was a 45-minute drive when I was down at the FBI, and I went from Quantico to headquarters, but driving from Quantico home was like 45 minutes. I'd get out of work, stop at the convenience store, get a pint of ice cream, eat the pint of ice cream driving home, get home, then say, you know what? I had a long, hard day. I'm just going to reward myself and dig into another pint for dessert. And my spoon would be scraping the bottom of the container. We live in this kind of everything in moderation society. And when everything is everything in moderation, everything becomes too much. To be able to look at this from a holistic perspective, one cookie's not going to kill you, but a sleeve of cookies often. And it's not just that, it's the habits that go with it. And not just that, but then the cortisol increases the inflammation. And then what happens? You're stressed. You don't get a good night's sleep. You wake up, you're like, I'm too tired. I'm not going to go to the gym. Then you're craving processed food and junk food and sugar all day. So what are you going to eat and load up on? So I feel like the spiral either kind of goes one way or it goes the other way.
If somebody wants to work with you, how do they get a hold of you?
The best way actually is my podcast, Your Midlife Comeback Story. I would write down this number, episode 136, where we actually get into the FBI tactics that I use to help you uncover your weight loss. I also have a free quiz. You can learn about that in that episode as well. And then Instagram is where I hang out at holly.bertone, Bertone. Come say hello there too.
Two things I want to talk about before we go. Can we talk a little bit about divorce?
Yeah, absolutely. The framework that I used with healing myself, with losing those extra 10 pounds in midlife, that I use with my clients, that I've perfected over the years, like going back and looking at it and realizing I've been doing this framework for years and just kind of perfecting it as a health coach. When I went through my divorce 2 years ago, I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I was expecting the worst. I incorporated the framework that I use, and I was like, you know what? Let's see if it works on the divorce. And what happened was I showed up in a place taking full responsibility for my part in the marriage and my part in the divorce. I also showed up in a place of complete forgiveness. With that, there was no anger, bitterness, resentful, anything. I hear so often, oh, I gave you the best years of my life. There was none of that. When I showed up in that place, it kind of took the sails out of his wind. And he's like, oh, there was nothing to fight against. So we ended up coming to a very mutual agreement in 7 days, split our assets and figured it out. And we got really creative. We consulted with our professionals and they said that we were crazy, but they're like, hey, if it works for you, we're in full agreement. Divorce is still hard. I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying it was a great experience, but like you look at it from there's the depth of it, and then there's how long it takes to heal. And healing's always a journey. It's a horizon. But the dark depth wasn't as deep as I expected it to be. The healing window didn't take as long as I thought it would be. And a lot of people need to go no contact. And I 100% agree that there's a lot of situations that needs to happen. For me, in the place that I was in, I welcomed every time I got triggered by him, because every time I got triggered, I saw it as an opportunity to grow. I saw it as an opportunity. Okay, it's not the trigger. There's still something going on. There's still a root cause that I haven't figured out how to heal. And I haven't gotten to that other place in the healing yet. So every time I got triggered, I just shut down everything for a couple of days and just did a lot of reflection, journaling, meditation, prayer, all the things, pulled out the entire arsenal that I've figured out over the years. I was able to get to the other side of it, and has really helped me, basically using my own methodology to help me to get to that place where, divorce is hard, but it was probably the best one that I can imagine, if that even makes sense.
So important for us to take responsibility of our part. Remember that saying about if you're pointing one finger out, three are pointing back. And so when I went through my divorce as well, I really tried to take those moments. Like at one point, there was a point where in my mind, I was blaming him for the reason that I wasn't pursuing my next career or my next thing. And when I looked at it, I realized, oh my goodness, I can blame him till the cows come home, but this is actually on me. And that's when I turned things around for myself. You have a podcast and you already mentioned episode 136. So you've been doing this for a while. So many people that I coach have just that hard time pushing record. What was it that helped you get to the point of just do it?
Oh my goodness. This is such a crazy story. I'm glad you asked this. I never get asked this. This is such a crazy story. I actually launched my podcast by accident. I was back then scared to death to speak my truth, to speak my voice. Hashimoto's is the whole thyroid thing. So blocked throat chakra, if you want to get into the whole thing, right? And I did not want to speak my voice. I did not want to speak my truth. I operate on the Kajabi software platform and they had just rolled out this podcast thing. So I was like, you know what? Let me just do some like little 5-minute things just for my community, not to go to the external world, but just to keep in house. And the next thing I know, there's confetti all over my screen and my podcast is like live out there for the world. And I'm like, well, shoot, I guess this means I'm a podcaster now. Like in my head, I didn't even think about turn it off, go back, like burn it down. Like in my head, I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to do this. I literally accidentally launched a podcast.
I love it. I love this story.
And I kept going. It's been rebranded 3 times. We've had a journey. We have definitely had a journey because again, I accidentally launched it. So I didn't know anything about podcasting. I didn't know anything of what I was talking about. I just thought you just kind of get on the mic and just talk. Yeah. So it's definitely been a journey. So we're getting ready to hit 150. In fact, like in my planning right now, I'm planning up to 155. It's pretty epic. It's been such a great journey. I have a producer who I use and it's been a lot of fun just to be able to grow and use this kind of creativity and to be able to just reach so many women with this message of like having your comeback story in midlife, whether that's with your health, your life, your career, all of the things, again, just looking at us from that holistic perspective.
If you go back to any of your favorite podcasters and you listen to the first episode, you'll see a difference. So just push record and go and do it. Yeah. And I love it that it gave you a voice.
So funny. I mean, now I've got a producer, we've got pillars, we've got a studio, I've got equipment. Like right now I'm in my recording studio. Like it's a whole thing. Back then I'm like, wait, what?
And consistency is the most important because we want people to know, like, and trust us. And if they can listen and they can gain from our free content, then they're going to be able to trust us if they want to go deeper and work with us on a deeper level and pay. And I know for me, if I'm going to pay somebody, I want to know, like, and trust them. I want to feel like I know who they are and what they represent and their philosophies. So kudos to you for that. I love that story. Before we go, Holly, this has been so amazing. What is it you really want us to know?
I really feel like it's never too late. When we get to this kind of certain age, and I'm 53, by the way, when we get to the certain age, so often say, I'll do it when. I'll do it when work slows down. I'll do it when, my last kid's out of the house. I'll do it after the holidays. I'll do it after summer break. I'll do it after this kid's school break is over. I'll do it when the thing calms down. We're in this place in life where things aren't calming down. They're not. They're getting different. They might get a little more difficult sometimes, but they're not calming down. It's just a matter of how much do you want it? And just taking that scary first step and doing it. Really, we did a lot of decision trees at the FBI. It's like, do you want to do the thing? Regardless of what that thing is, whether it's losing weight, getting healthy, getting a divorce, getting remarried, like whatever the thing is, new career. Do you really want to do the thing? Like, is it in your heart to become a better version of you by doing the thing? Yes or no? If it's no, that's okay. There's always going to be seasons that really no is the best answer. And if it's a yes, back to what we talked about earlier, if you want what they have, do what they do. Find that person that's going to get you there. Find a coach like you or like me or like someone who you resonate with. You feel like they have the system, the process, the structure. They have the heart. They know how to get you there. Because I know just from, my own experience and journey, it can be long and it can be lonely. And it's really nice to have people there. I want to touch on accountability really quick too, because we think, this coach is going to hold me accountable. A good coach is going to teach you how to hold yourself accountable. When you're like, I need to do the thing because ... versus I'm doing this for my coach. You know what I mean? There's a big difference there. And when you can get to that place where you can hold your own self accountable, you're going to be unstoppable.
I love that. That is so good.
If you love this podcast, here's a big ask. Will you share with your friends and family, subscribe, give us a review, and a 5-star rating so that others looking to reinvent their lives will be able to get the help they're looking for? Thank you in advance.